Hello, today's focus is going to be on the APA reference page. Up until this point in the semester, we've mainly worked in MLA format. Now, if you'll remember, MLA stands for Modern Language Association. MLA format is used pretty widely in English classes, history classes, and in other areas. APA, similar to MLA, is a method of citing and formatting your essays. So APA, and these are things that you'll want to know, stands for American Psychological Association. And APA format is pretty widely used, of course, in the social sciences. You see that through the word psychology or psychological in APA. It's also used in some health sciences areas. So, for instance, here at Mountain Empire, you'll probably encounter some instructors who want you to use proper APA format. So, for that reason, I do like to go over both MLA and APA in this course. That way, regardless of the career path you choose in the higher education you pursue, you're going to be prepared. So the first thing we're going to discuss with APA, since we are using APA for your final research paper in this class, and this of course is the last paper we'll be doing, the first thing that we'll be discussing is how to do the reference page. Now, the reference page in APA is the same thing as an MLA works cited page. They perform the same function. So it is a list of sources that you have used within your essay. Now, just like in MLA, this page has to be formatted appropriately. But the rules for APA reference entries are different than the rules for MLA or works cited entries. So you'll want to be sure to use your textbook as a guide. I've been using APA and MLA for quite a while, and I still use my textbook as a guide to help me check my entries and to format them. So make sure to use it. The APA guide in your textbook starts right after the MLA guide. So you would use the MLA guide for both in-text citations and works cited entries. If you flip to right after that, you'll find the APA guide. It goes over the in-text citations before the reference entries, but that reference entry section will show you how to cite on the reference page any type of source that you have. So it'll show you how to cite a book, a website, a journal article, interview, etc. So make sure again to lean on that very heavily. And there's also a website that I'll show you in a moment that if you don't have your textbook handy, you can use to help you format and check those entries. So you're familiar with the concept of a reference page because again, we've done it with MLA. But one thing that may be a little bit different again is how these entries are formatted. So that's going to be my focus of today's discussion. So I'm going to kind of come off of this little note page for just a second. And what I'm going to show you is just a sample reference page that you have within this week's module on Canvas. So this is in your APA citing document that you see. And this, I've kind of scrolled down just a little bit, but the top of the document is titled How to Do an APA Reference Page. And you have the rules up here, but I want to kind of look at the big picture first before we get into the weeds. So essentially, this is what a reference page will look like. Just like the works cited page, it will be the last page of your essay, and it will also be formatted in terms of hanging indent, Times New Roman, 12-point font, double space, similarly to a works cited page. Now, what you'll notice is that these entries look a lot different than the MLA ones did. So for instance, first of all, at the top we have references instead of works cited, but as you get into the specific entries, you'll notice first off with APA, they do not write out authors' first names. So instead, you have first initials. The next thing you'll notice in an APA citation is that the date is always the second item in the citation. Now, if you happen to not have a date, and you can see this in the bottom entry here, and this is also in your textbook, if you happen to not have a date, you'll have N period, D period. Those are in parentheses, and that stands for no date. So you'll either have a date or ND as the second item in that citation. As we get into in-text citations next week, you'll see why just a little bit more. That helps with correlation. The next thing that you'll see in this first one, and again, this is a website, but the next thing you'll see is a title. Now, one thing you'll notice about titles on APA pages, and I'm mainly going over the differences now, is that titles of short works in MLA have quote marks around them. However, if you are in APA format, you do not have quote marks, and the only items that are capitalized are the first word of the title and any proper nouns. The other words are not capitalized. So if this had been a title that was in an APA citation or in an MLA citation, your and profile would have also been capitalized there. Those are the main differences, but again, you'll want to use your textbook as a guide for the order of these, just like you did with MLA. Like I said, with MLA, it's kind of like paint by number. So you just want to plug the information in where it goes. So the same thing here. You'll notice the titles are a little bit different in terms of capitalization and no quote marks. But the thing that you'll notice, just like with MLA, this is a similarity, is that if you don't have an author, the title comes first, and that's the title of the short work. So all of the entries either begin with the author or the title, okay? But again, the date is always the second item in the citation. So for instance, if I had this source, and let's say that that source had not had an author. Let's say J.K. Baker had not been listed. If I were doing that same citation, what would have happened is that title is your profile on Facebook would have leapfrogged over to the front. So the citation would have been, is your profile on Facebook, question mark, then the date, then New York Times. So like I said, the date is always the second item in the citation. So if you ever run or complete an APA reference entry and the date is first, it's not correct. So what comes first either needs to be the author or the short work title, okay? And again, I kind of say this with the idea in mind that you are looking through your textbook as well to help you format these. And one thing with APA is that oftentimes people get a little bit intimidated just because it's something different. However, keep in mind, just like with MLA, as long as you have your textbook and you use it, you're going to be right because that's kind of your cheat sheet to show you where everything goes. So don't let it be intimidating. Just make sure that you do check your work against your textbook to ensure that the author is where it goes, the dates where it goes, the titles where it goes, etc. Now, the reason I do like to mention this whole title formatting thing is because if you do use a citation generator like EasyBib or Citation Machine, which I encourage you to use, they're very helpful. If you use one of those, oftentimes it won't fix your capitalization. So that's something you have to look out for. So remember, just the first word of the title and proper noun should be capitalized. Now, the rules for the rest of it are pretty much the same as those I outlined when I was doing the similarities and differences. And so you see here again, last name, first initial. So here we have two authors. What you'll notice as you look through your textbook is if you have two authors, we use an ampersand to separate them instead of the word and. And then other than that, they look pretty similar in formatting to your MLA because you do still have your hanging indentation, font still similar, etc. The next item that I'll bring to your attention is that we do still alphabetize just like we did in MLA. So we alphabetize by what comes first. So we have B, H, K, etc. When you have a source that begins with a number, you treat it like the letter of the word of the number. So if, say, it started with 10, we would treat it like TEN, if that helps, if you run into that situation. Now, with every web source, you should either have a URL or what's called a DOI. So you saw that on your MLA citations too, because MLA required this. DOI stands for Digital Object Identifier. You'll have this on some online journal articles. You don't really have to worry about this as much because the sources that tend to have these are ones that have the APA generators on them, and they typically put them where they go. However, I bring that to your attention because if you ever pull a source from offline and it doesn't have either a DOI or a URL, then you will need to go in and manually put the URL in. And to do that, all you have to do is type just like this, retrieved from, and then go up to the top of the page and copy and paste your URL down onto your reference page. But again, in theory, everything is similar in terms of purpose on this page. It's just the items go in a little bit of a different order. So make sure at this point that you do go ahead and bookmark the APA section in your textbook. Like I said, it's right after the MLA one, and look through it quite carefully. Often I do tell people to take about 20-30 minutes to read through that APA guide, because knowing where everything is and knowing the basic rules before you begin, that's really going to help you a lot. This isn't a heavy reading class, so you should have that time to set aside, since we don't have other assigned readings quite as much. So that is kind of how the page is formatting, and you do have a reference page due this week. So make sure that you format that properly, and I will give you comments if I see any issues. So at the top of this page, you also have how to do a reference page, and I've put on here some basic citations. So how to cite an author, or how to cite a book, how to cite an article retrieved from one of our library databases, how to cite if it doesn't have a DOI. Again, you'll notice it has the URL instead, and how to cite a website. One thing that you'll notice is with APA websites is sometimes they'll be a little bit short in length, and that's totally fine. Okay. If you do have any questions, just let me know. But a lot of this will be kind of just reading through it, because it's mainly a grammatic and stylistic change that you're going through here, rather than a huge content or purpose change. Now, just to back up a touch within this module, and I'll stop sharing here. What I want to show you now is the resource that I had referenced earlier. So if you do not have your textbook handy, one website that I would highly recommend that you use is the Purdue OWL. And OWL there stands for Online Writing Lab. And I've linked this within our module as well. So you've got this page. So much like your textbook, it shows you how to do in-text citations and reference entries. So what I've done on this page that's linked is I've scrolled down, and you'll notice on the left that there are quite a few links pertinent to the reference list. Now, I'm not going to go over these because again, you understand the basics of citations, but let's say I just want to know the basic rules. So I'm going to click reference list basic rules. And this reiterates a lot of the rules I went over when going over that reference list that I just showed you. Basically that it goes at the end, etc. And then it shows you, again, you should use a hanging indent, last name, comma, first initial. And then if you have up to 20 authors, you list last name and first initial. So if you have a source that's 15 authors, you list all of them, and that's a new change. You alphabetize, and then it shows you how to deal with articles by the same author, etc. And I'm not going to read this to you because it is something you can look at, but I did want you to be familiar with what was on that page. Now, on the left side also, let's say that I have a book that I want to cite. All you have to do is over on the left, if I click reference list :books, it will show me how to do that citation. So this is very similar to what you see in your textbook. So like I said, if you don't have your textbook with you, feel free to use this website to help you put everything in order. Now, also make sure when you do these citations, like I said, check your capitalization. You know, if it's a work that's a little bit longer, a publication title, put it in italics. If it's a short work title, don't put quote marks around it. And always check your capitalization regardless of the type. So this is a very helpful one. There's a lot within this section that you can look at. So it shows you how to deal with legal sources, numbers and statistics, etc. But right now our focus is on that reference list. So like I said, if you don't have your textbook with you, this is a good one. And the last one is on their OWL page, you do see that they have a little citation machine widget on here. So if you use EasyBib, you can copy and paste a URL of one of your web sources into this and click cite, and it will do it for you. So if I click on electronic sources, for instance, I get a citation of how to cite a website, and I could do that little drop down there too to tell it to change my source type if I wanted to do it from here also. Now, something that I won't quite show, but I will tell, is that if you find sources on our databases, remember that those databases do cite for you. So remember to click that cite button. And the only difference is instead of scrolling down to MLA, now you just select APA and you run that citation. Like I said, check the capitalization because it will mess them up sometimes. But after you copy that citation, just paste it onto a reference page. Again, center references at the top, paste it in, put on your hanging indent, just like you did with the works cited. Then check your capitalization and you should be good to go. Now remember, as you are making this reference page, to save or print your sources as you go because you will be using them in your final essay in this class. Otherwise, though, if you have any questions on APA formatting, please don't hesitate to let me know, and I am totally happy to help. That's what I'm here for. And I hope you have a great day.